What's up, Pitt fans? Welcome back to another Pitt mailbag here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. He is Chris Carter. I am Noah Hiles, and Chris, as always, we got a lot of great questions here, some football, some basketball stuff. But first off, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. How you, buddy?
I can't complain, buddy.
Buddy?
Are we just
Guy?
buddy off right
Ow.
now? All right.
Yeah.
Easy. I don't want any trouble here. All right, so we'll start off on the football side of things. Jeff wants to know, current center, Jake Kradel, probably should have been the starter at center last year as well. I believe he's been under the radar, an under the radar cog in the offensive line for the last 3 years. Only a season-ending injury derailing him from for the end of their ACC championship run. Would you agree that he could? Oh man, this question's so long. He could be and possibly must be a vital link to another ACC championship run? Question mark. Sorry, yeah, I always have these on the side, and this one's so long it kind of tallied off. I didn't get to see the end of it. Chris, do you want to start this one, or shall I?
Sure. I think Jake Kradel is a very good center, and he's a guy who kind of picked it up because he had to because of Owen Drexel's injury, and then it turned out he really worked at center. And not just because he's a good player, but because he's a smart player. He's a guy that understands the checks. He understands what everyone else is doing. And it's funny, when you talk to Jake, he'll play down his football smarts. He's like, oh, come on, Chris, I'm not that guy. But he absolutely is. When you talk to his teammates, he's a very smart guy. He can communicate things down the line, and he's big and physical. He knows how to beat people at the point of attack. And he's been part of this Pitt team for quite a while. I think that, beyond just the talent that he brings at center, he is a balancing and stabilizing presence on this offensive line that's going to have a lot of changes to it this year. A lot of guys went to the NFL draft or ran out of eligibility, and now Kradel's kind of going to be the elder statesman who kind of gets all the young guys to fill in their spots and keep them in the right places. I think that he is a vital piece, if not for being, a really talented center who I think could work well in the ACC, being the guy that helps Pitt's offensive line stay in the upper part of the ACC.
If Pitt football had a players, if the ACC or if college football, every team had a players union, Jake Kradel would be the team's representative.
It's a good way to describe it.
He is the mayor of the team in so many different ways. He's incredibly well spoken. He's incredibly intelligent. He knows how to work us reporters. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, he knows everyone's first name. He shakes our hands every time.
Shakes our hands all the time.
And it's not disingenuous. He's a really good guy, and he's a key piece on the field, no doubt. But like Chris said, he's a key piece culture-wise. He's a guy that will ensure that, all these new pieces that are going to be put into place on the offense are going to be able to gel because they have an even keel type guy running the offense. He's the first person to touch the ball every snap. So I think stuff like that's important when you have someone who is a team guy. He's one of the last players on that offense that was a starter from that 2021 championship team. And he's someone that I would be shocked if he did not have a C on his jersey come week one. If he's not a team captain, I think he has probably the best odds on the team, offense or defense, to be named a team captain this year. And I think anyone that you could say that about is, they're absolutely an instrumental piece to the team's success. I think he's also very valuable on the field. Like we said, I think I would be surprised if he didn't get some sort of all ACC recognition this year. And then that comes with just being around for a long time and being a key player for a lot of football games that he's played in blue and gold. We switch over to basketball now. Mike wants to know, what should Jeff Capel do to fill out the basketball roster as the portal season winds down? So Pitt has 2 spots on its roster remaining right now. Chris, how would you like to see those 2 spots filled?
Well, we've seen them get Ishmael Leggett from Rhode Island. He's in there now. You got Zach Austin from High Point. Leggett, definitely more of a guard, more of a 2 that fits in there. He shot, I think, 32% from three last season. So I think he's going to be another guy that you bring in, and he helps, get the shooting up and kind of help with spacing. Austin, more of a wing type of guy, 6'7", another guy with good length who can run the floor a little bit. So he could kind of come in, and I think that if you don't put Blake at the 4, he's like, he's your backup 3, because then Blake Henson would then move to the 3 there. So now the question is, what else do you need? I still think this team needs an experienced point guard. They're bringing in Carrington. They're bringing in Lowe. Dior Johnson is going to have his second year with the team, with his first year that he can actually play. But you look at all those guys; those are kids. Those are going to be new guys to the program, and I think there's going to need to be a steadying presence in the backcourt, at least at the point guard, someone who could handle the ball in some key minutes, and kind of if the pace of game is going against the Panthers, then being able to bounce back. So I think you can get that, and I think they still need a kind of a thicker big man who could really help at the 4 and like maybe even bump into the 5 whenever needed. Because I think Fetty and the Twins, they're fun, and I think they're great for what they need. But you know what, I think Pitt needs a bruiser that's going to help that group as well.
I completely agree. I don't necessarily think you need a veteran point guard, but I think you need just one more older guard. And it could be a point guard. It could be another shooting guard. I think Ishmael Leggett isn't someone you can compare. He's not a Nelly Cummings, and he's not a Greg Elliott. I think maybe he's not necessarily a Nike Sabande or Jamarius Burton either. He's just a traditional 2 guard.
Yeah.
I don't know, like you could compare him maybe to like a Brad Wanamaker or something. I guess maybe not as skilled as Brad Wanamaker, who had an NBA career, but maybe we'll see. And then I think a player comparison for Zach Austin. I made this on my show with our show with Abby. Leaky Black. I think he could be in that type of role from North Carolina. Just like, someone who's a little shorter than your traditional power forward, but a defense guy who can bring energy and scoring and just very athletic and takes a little bit of the workload on the defensive end off of Blake Hinson's shoulders. But as far as filling those 2 roster spots go, yeah, Chris, I agree. If you look at teams that are winning in March, they have veteran backcourts. Look at UConn, look at Miami, look at FAU, look at San Diego State. It's none of these teams are trotting out, 5-star freshmen. That era of, one and done. I mean, it's still relevant. Don't get me wrong. The first round draft picks are going to come in and they're going to be solid. But the teams that have been winning, and it's not just this past season, it's really since the transfer portal started going, it's the teams that win in this tournament, they have experience, and especially in the backcourt. You want guys who have played a lot of college basketball to be controlling the basketball in late game situations. And if you have a superstar that's a little younger on the wing, or maybe at the 2 or the 3, that's a little different. And it's okay if you have a young point guard, but you want at least a couple of other guys in that backcourt who have been in these experiences. And I think that landing someone else with that experience, I mean, Joe Girard, I don't know if that's a realistic thing anymore. Same for Matthew Cleveland, 2 guys that Pitt's reached out to. I know a source told me this weekend that Noah Thomason, a guy, I forget where he's, what school he went to. I can look it up right now, but he's the number 1 priority for Pitt in the transfer portal. And that's another graduate transfer type guard who could come in, play some great defense. He went to Niagara, and just, have a slow heartbeat when things get going. Pitt has that experience.
Jamarius Burton, who
right.
when the going gets tough, he's right there to be like, let's lock in.
Especially early in the season. When we get to March, if Pitt's in there, these freshmen that will be playing, they're going to have that experience under their belt by then. But it still helps, especially early on, to have those experienced guys where if they get off to another bad start again, they can have that leadership in the locker room, like we saw last year with Burton and Elliott and Cummings and Nike, to calm things down. And I think that, Thomason would be a great addition there. So a veteran guard, I think that's where Pitt's priority is, according to the people that I've spoken with, and that's where it should be. And then I agree, Chris, the other spot, just give me a bruiser. Give me someone who, I don't need another 7-footer. I got 3 of them on my roster from Jeff Capel, but give me someone who's like 6'10", 250, just someone who can come in and use 4 hard fouls. And if you're ever in one of those slobber knocker, old school Big East throwback type games where, buckets are hard to come by, we need someone to rough up Kyle Filipowski or Armando Bacot down low on the block. And, if Fetty needs a break, we could just put this guy in, because you could put the Twins in, but when you're putting the Twins in, you're kind of asking the entire team to play a different style of basketball. If you want someone who can just go in and bang a little bit down low, that's what you need. I look at someone like Isaac Jack from Buffalo, a freshman. He's a primary candidate, in my opinion. Bryant Celebong from Tulsa, as well. These are two traditional centers. I'm not sure if you can really sell anyone on the idea of being a backup center on a team like Pitt. I think they'll probably have to go the JUCO route to fill that last spot. But if they can get another mid-major guy, or even someone who is just a graduate transfer, someone who can come from another, Power 5 team, but is cool with being a role player and just playing out their last season, that would be valuable. So experience and just depth, those are my two focuses. And if you can add those at both spots, both in the front court and the back court, you're looking at a pretty solid roster for next season. So Tom wants to know. Tom says, I felt like Solomon DeShields made some nice plays last season. I also feel like he is someone who hasn't been talked about as much as he should be. How has he performed this spring and at the spring game? Carter, Solomon DeShields, I think, based on what we've heard from coaches, was probably one of their better defensive players this spring, no?
No, I agree, and it didn't show too much in the spring game. He only had like one tackle, but he gets pressure. He's big, he's fast, he's physical. Him and Bengali Kamara with Shane Simon all on the field at the same time would be a very solidly athletic group. They're very excited to see what they bring together. And DeShields is a guy, like a lot of guys at Pitt now who we've talked about. He's come through and he's come up through Pitt in a natural way, just like Kamara, just like Dalen Hayes, all these guys that are coming up and starting this year who have been around for 3-4 years. Again, why I think Pat Narduzzi deserves credit for not just the wins they've gotten, but the way they've built their program where guys are willing to wait their turn to get their big shot. And DeShields, we talked with him last year when him and Kamara were getting their first chances to play real game action. And they're like, this is what we've been waiting for. And now DeShields, I think, is going to definitely be a bigger part of this defense. Him and Kamara are big, fast, athletic dudes that bring different skill sets. I think DeShields is a better pass rusher than Kamara. Kamara is better in coverage than DeShields, in my opinion. But you combine those two on the field, it's going to give you some really good flexibility. So I think he's definitely going to be a solid answer for the Panthers at the linebacker position.
Yeah, I think Pitt's linebacker position in general has a lot of versatility.
It does.
This year, where you have, I think Kamara's pretty set in his spot, but the other three guys with DeShields, George, and Solomon, DeShields, Shane Simon, Solomon DeShields, and Brandon George. You can really interchange all three of those guys for the other two linebacker positions. And all three of them have, like you said, they have some great athleticism and they have some solid size. And Solomon DeShields, every now and then, I understand I'm not by any means a physical specimen, but I'm very surprised every now and then when I get, you don't get to talk to these guys every day, but when you talk to someone like a Solomon DeShields, who isn't a standout by any means as far as like a superstar, especially on last year's defense, but you see how big these guys are. And he is genetically gifted. Like he is a big
6'3", 230. And he moves.
He looks like an NFL linebacker and he has that size. And I think, like Chris said, he's been waiting behind a handful of guys who just have had more experience and should have been ahead of him on the depth chart. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if he's a starter. I think him and Brandon George will probably compete and rotate for that third spot there. I think at the end of spring, he was on the first string defense. But yeah, I expect him to have a bigger role this year. And I think he has the potential to be a playmaker. I think there's 3 starting linebacker spots, but I think Pitt has 4 solid playmakers at that position group who are all, toward the end of their collegiate careers that can all be a big difference maker. We'll move on now. Bags has a question. He wants to know, do you think Royce Farm from North Hills will pick Pitt Wednesday? Parham is making his decision Wednesday. I believe his final choices are Pitt, Penn State, Marquette, and Xavier. I want to say I can look that up. Carter, while I look that up, what do you think? What are Pitt's odds to land Royce?
I think it's a bit tough. You look at the visits he's made. He hasn't visited Pitt, whereas he's visited Wisconsin and he's visited Marquette. Yeah. The rumors out there on 24/7 Sports is that Marquette is the team in the lead to get him. It would be a cool, staying home story for Royce Parham, but 6'8", 200. That could be also an interesting spot to be, with the size that he would bring. But I think that, if there was something else, we'd see a little bit more. Like, I bumped into Ishmael Leggett at the Pitt, the Blue Gold spring game where I bumped into him walking around, and I was like, oh, okay, so he's actually interested. I think we would have heard some more rumblings or seen some Instagram posts of his visit had Royce Parham, come to Pitt, and not that he has to travel anywhere because he's North Hills, but like I think there would have been a little bit more noise by now if that was actually going to be the case.
Well, I know he's made a couple of unofficial visits, which again isn't saying much because he lives 15 minutes down the road.
Unofficial visits.
Yeah, and I mean he's a junior in high school, so he can't really start making an official visit, I believe, until right now. And if you're going to verbally commit anywhere, that's just how it's going to happen before you can make any official visits. I just look at a guy like him, like you said, 6'8", 200-ish, a little bit more. This is a Big East basketball player. I think his game translates there. I know Royce has a little bit of an outside game, but I think somewhere I look and I watched a lot of, we had the chance to cover Xavier this year. Obviously, it was a team that beat Pitt in the national tournament. I watched a lot of Marquette. I think those two teams probably fit his skill set better. And I think the same could be said for Penn State, just in the Big Ten. Those are leagues that traditionally you have a little bit more of a presence under the basket, where the ACC is a little bit more up and down type playing style of a league. Not saying that he wouldn't do well at Pitt. I think he would fit in just fine. But I know Marquette's put in a lot of effort toward him. I know Shaka Smart has made numerous trips down to Western Pennsylvania. I think he was at the first round Whitfield playoff game North Hills had this year. And yeah, he seems really invested in it. And that's not to say Capel isn't as well. Capel's been to numerous North Hills playoff games. So, I mean, the fact that Pitt's in his Final Four clearly says something. Royce has been to numerous Pitt games this year and everything, but I just think his game probably translates a little better to the Big East or the Big Ten than it would the ACC. And for those reasons, I would say it's probably not going to be Pitt. I could be wrong. And like I say all the time, I'm wrong quite often when it comes to making predictions. So that's where I'm at. So we'll move forward now. Rob wants to know, back on the football train here, over under 3,500 passing yards by Pitt quarterbacks this year. Now, for context, Keaton Slovis threw for 2,397 yards in his season last year, and I don't think Patty threw for like maybe 240 in the Sun Bowl, and Yarnell might have thrown for definitely under 200, I believe, against Western Michigan. So I don't think Pitt quarterbacks combined for over 3,000 last year. So that would be a pretty significant jump. Carter, do you think that 3,500 by Pitt quarterbacks is a realistic possibility, over under?
I think I'd take the under here, especially because they still believe in their run game and their offensive line right now. Also for context, Kenny Pickett, who, is a flag bearer for what Pitt football can be when it gets to its full potential. He got 4,300 passing yards in his final year at Pitt in 2021, but never before that had he reached the 3,500
You
mark.
stole my stat. I literally told you that before we were going.
I covered Kenny Pickett for like 2 years. So,
I literally told you that. Oh,
buddy,
when
the question came up, it's going to be the one that, okay, that's not like a stolen stat. We all can see that.
You're buddying me again. My goodness.
Buddy.
But that's a great point. Continue. Sorry.
But my one point here is that he might have been able to eclipse that if 2020 wasn't a COVID year, that also he missed multiple weeks in. He had 2,400 yards over 9 games. Not sure if that would have averaged out better if he was not injured and if this was a full season that wasn't impacted by COVID. But also important to remember, in 2021, that was the Mark Whipple just throw the doggone ball year. And it's tough to see Jurkovec getting that chance to push the ball that much when they're going to have a strong run game with some running backs that they're pretty excited to hand the ball off to.
I'll say this. I think if Pitt quarterbacks throw for over 3,500 this year, I think that might not be a good thing for the Panthers.
Yeah.
Where that might mean they're playing from behind a lot and they have to throw the ball out of necessity. This isn't a team that's really built to throw the football first. It's a run first team. I think that's an accepted identity. I think they're going to be more successful throwing the ball this year. I will say that. And when I say successful, that means it's going to be a reliable option on third down. You're not going to have interceptions that make you want to tear your hair out. But this is still a team that's built to win by running the football and playing great defense. And as Pittsburghers should love hearing that. That's what this city's identity is, right, on the gridiron. So 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And I think, like I said, quarterback play will be better. But I just think, yes, one of the strongest areas of the offense is its depth in the backfield and its starting offensive line. They're going to play to those strengths. We saw Cignetti do that last year. I think the mistakes will be less, so there will be less interceptions. There will be more trust, without question, on third down, and it'll be a reliable part of the offense. I think 3,000 is probably within the realm of possibility, without a doubt. But 3,500, now you're looking at a pass-first offense. I don't think Pitt wants to be a pass-first offense because, like we said, they have a good running back room. They have a good offensive line. And the worst part of this team, and this is no disrespect to the guys that are starters, but the thinnest area of that depth chart right now is the receiver room. They return 2 guys who are starters. And then after that, everyone else on the roster, the other, I think, 11 guys in spring ball have a combined 13 catches in their collegiate career. So there's just not a lot of experience there. So I think banking on them being an aerial attack isn't the right way to go about it. So yeah, I would also take the under. So Chris wants to know, man, you're stealing stats and submitting your own questions in our mailbags. What the heck? No. Hey, Chris. I'm joking, buddy. Don't be mad at me.
Buddy.
All right. Anon Carter wants to know, if you were Jeff Capel or Pat Narduzzi, where would you take a recruit during their visit? Now, I'll say this, and we'll give our answers. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm willing to bet that the locations those 2 coaches take recruits, I bet you there's a lot of different spots.
I agree.
Between where Pat goes and where Jeff goes. I'm not going to speculate on where. I think Pat probably does more of the tourist stuff, and focuses more on history and the blue collar aspect of the town. Where I think Jeff is probably more on culture, and he's in Shady Side or in Lawrenceville and showing off the cool restaurants and stuff like that. But Carter, what about you? Where are some spots, that neighborhoods, individual spots? Where would you go?
Well, I think one thing is you want to impress the recruits with the city, especially now that players can come back, because that was a thing for a while. Players could not visit during COVID years, and that was something that both coaches said that was a disadvantage, because one of the best things we can do is when we get here, we sweep them in, you take them right through the Fort Pitt tunnels, they get to see the city, and then you could take them up to Mount Washington, take them to the landing, let them see the big city, and then it's okay, and then you're seeing 2 professional sports stadiums, one of the stadiums that they'll play at if they're playing football. I think that's one that I would definitely have on my list as far as seeing things, but also, like you said, taking in culture. Pittsburgh has a lot of different places now to visit. When you're talking about Shady Side, Lawrenceville, the Strip District, to get the hustle and bustle feel. I think that there's, the South Side is something that I think that they'd probably deter them from, just because of the craziness of that area. But also, Pitt's facilities, I think, are pretty well praised for being well kept up. So if I'm Pitt, I'm showing off the beautiful skyline of Pittsburgh as much as I can. I take him to one of the many fine establishments. Personally, I take him to a Pamela's. If I was there, I'd get him introduced with that. It was actually one recruit I found that was a person who was a quarterback who was in on a visit, did go to Pamela's, and they were like, this made me kind of want to come here. So they like the pancakes. So I think that those would be on my top list. What about you?
I think, there's only one way you got to bring him into the city. That's through the Fort Pitt Tunnel.
Yeah.
I think Mount Washington's a must. I actually would probably even go about it where you go either up to Mount Washington on the cable cars or down, just to give him that iconic experience. I think the most scenic place in the city, aside from Mount Washington, is the North Shore. Just because you walk along the river, you get that view by the Mr. Rogers statue, just, and that stretch of new bars and restaurants. I think that picture represents modern Pittsburgh, where Jeff's talked about this a lot too, where everyone, if you've never been here, you assume Pittsburgh is, this town full of smoke or some steel mills and smoke above the city. And you go down on the North Shore and all these businesses are new. A lot of those places, they didn't exist when I was in high school, so they're 10, 15 years old. and they're frequented by young people. And I think that especially if you're a football player, you want to see what's this place, what's this surrounding area of the stadium that I'm going to be playing in, what's it like? And you see, oh, there's lots for tailgating, there's stuff currently being built, there's cool restaurants here, there's barcades, there's a whole bunch of different stuff there, and I think that's neat. Those would be my first stops. I would then get in a private helicopter and fly them to campus so I can avoid them seeing any type of construction in Oakland.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, you probably would have, you'd still probably run into some kind of traffic in general, just because that's what happens with Oakland. But I think the Pete is a great resource as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you said, I think you could also play it off of where the kid's from.
Yeah.
Israel Banakanda, I remember interviewing him, and he said he loved Pitt's campus because he grew up in Brooklyn. He didn't like going to Tennessee or Vanderbilt, where there were like more of a rural feel for their campuses. He liked feeling like he was in the big city, but vice versa. The nice thing about Western Pennsylvania is, and you can apply this simply to the Pittsburgh neighborhoods itself, you can feel like you're in a rural area or in the middle of a city in a matter of 10 minutes. And I think I go off of where that kid grew up and where that kid's comfortable. And you can show him, hey, this city really has something to offer for everyone. If he's got a vowel in his last name, I'm taking him to Bloomfield. If he's got, like for Little Italy days and I'm Shady Side, Lawrenceville, there's so many different things that you can expose these potential recruits to. But yeah, one specific place, I just think the North Shore, I think that's probably the most scenic in new area that I would go to. And if not there, Brookline, great neighborhood. Couldn't recommend it enough. So
that's an interesting plug there.
Yeah,
for Brookline.
Yeah.
But
Actually,
no,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing that neither of us mentioned on the football side is you don't got to go too far for a big selling point. You just wait for the Steelers to come out and do their practice at some point, and
right.
Pat Narduzzi, which he does, and like when these OTAs and rookie camps and mini camps start up for the Steelers, you're gonna see Pat Narduzzi walking around with some recruits saying like, "See, isn't this kind of cool? Look,
there's Najee Harris, yeah, there's Mike Tomlin,
right. there's Kenny Pickett. Oh, by the way, just was playing here, so maybe this could be you." Like especially on the football side, they need to play up that connection as much as possible, because there are people that come in and be like, "Oh, wow, that is very cool that I would be right there and have that as a resource and be able to just sit and watch pros practice." That's something that's definitely on their advantage as well.
So if you're leading the recruiting visit, Chris, what's one spot that if you personally, I can guarantee you this kid will have a great time, I'm taking him here. Where are you going?
Depends on what we're trying to do. Pamela's would be my brunch visit, just to kind of get them the in city and like, this is Pittsburgh. And I think that a lot of people would buy into that. If I'm doing a dinner, what's the name of that? There's a seafood restaurant on the north side. Oh,
no, on the north side. I was thinking by like
not on the north side. Excuse me. It's like on Mount Washington. It's a high rise. You got to take an elevator all the way.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know. I know what you're talking about though.
It's not the Lamont. It's
everyone gets engaged there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I took my girlfriend there for Valentine's Day. It was pretty good with the views and the vibes and the food. So that would be a place that I would take them, and that would be like a nice like dinners when sunset hits the rivers. It just lights up the city for you, and it's a beautiful chance for you to kind of like wine and dine someone to Pittsburgh.
I'm taking them to the waterfront. I think that's a really underrated area, and we're going to Dave and Buster's. I guarantee you, I could sell anyone on anything at Dave and Buster's. No,
listen, man, you might scare some of these basketball recruits to be like, he's a reporter and he's doing this in Papa Shot.
He's getting buckets. Yeah, that's what the city does. Any final thoughts, Chris, as we wrap this one up?
Just that I think it was sad with the passing of Herb Douglas.
Yeah.
A Pitt legend and a Pittsburgh legend. A lot of people don't know Herb Douglas, who was the longest, the oldest living Olympic medalist that we had in the United States. And he not only was a Pitt man who became an Olympian, but a Pittsburgh man. He grew up in Hazelwood, went to my alma mater of Alderdice, and won state championships there. Played basketball, football, was breaking college barriers as well, color barriers for his time in the 40s and the 30s. So a lot of great stuff there about Herb Douglas, and a great piece that Gene Collier wrote, and that we were very fortunate to contribute to. So just want to say it's sad that he passed, but he's a legend, and I'm glad that he got to get some of his flowers being inducted to the Pitt Hall of Fame.
Alderdice Hall of Fame, Hall of Honor,
and Alderdice Hall of Fame, and him getting an indoor track named for him in the new Victory Heights building, and him learning that. He even said like he would have given it to, I think it was John Woodruff, who was the first ever Pitt athlete who won an Olympic medal, or Olympic gold medal, excuse me. But he was very humble about it, but he was truly appreciative. So it's a lost Pitt man, but a man who lived for over 100 years and lived it to the fullest.
Yeah, I think that Herb Douglas's name, that's one of those ones where when you hear someone passionate about the University of Pittsburgh, that's one that they're ready to throw out and really boast about. Look at what one of us went on to achieve.
Yeah.
You hear that name, and that's just like I said, that's one of those poster names that it doesn't matter how much time goes on, he'll be someone when you tell the story of the University of Pittsburgh, not even from an athletic standpoint, but just in general, what he achieved, it transcends sports. It's culture, it's history, it's civil rights, it's all that type of stuff. And yeah, I mean, what an incredible life. I mean, Carter, if you or I were to achieve, a third, a third of what he did, jeez, I think we would feel pretty good when we were breathing our last breath. So, I mean, what a tremendous life. Like you said, it was an honor to contribute to Gene's awesome piece on this, and just hear people, talk about everything that he achieved, and just, man, what a great example of what any Pitt athlete should strive to be. So that's all we got for this week. Keep sending in those questions to our emails or Twitter accounts via DM, and hit that subscribe button if we haven't already. I don't know if you guys heard, the NFL draft is this week. What? We haven't been talking about that for the last 12 months. So yeah, we'll have tons of coverage from that, from the Steelers perspective, Pitt perspective, Penn State, Whitfield guys as well. We'll have you covered there. We'll have it all on this YouTube channel and on our site as well. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you then.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it on Apple Podcasts, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down in the description.